Yo, what's up, guys? Uh, I was listening to Sean's videos there. Excuse me. And the one about like Nexus being where he is and where he was, like basically his jump from like SS1 to SS5 plus is just the first jump for his people was very cool to hear. And like I said, it makes sense from what Tymir's, and this is just me extrapolating, like Tymir's store had for different races, and they had them like categorized like normal, elite, and then like there's I think a level above that, or maybe elite's the highest level, and there's a level below that. But anyway, like that was like that just kind of got me thinking. It's like, yeah, I guess if like you're a celestial or you're a cosmic being or something like that, like in another fantasy universe, like your first level may encompass like the first five levels of like a more common race, and like Saiyans are, for all intents and purposes, pretty common. So in that regard, like I said, that kind of makes it like the what level have you made it kind of difficult because, like I said, for a Saiyan race, like you can say I made it at Super Saiyan, like because I still feel like by and large, like for Saiyan races, like if you hit it to Super Saiyan, like you have in some aspect made it. It's not something that like every Saiyan can do. Now, obviously, like Super Saiyan 2, 3, 4, those are all well and good. In Tymir's game, like Super Saiyan 5 seems like where you're like you've made it on the Saiyan level because like what that sheet that he gave said like there's 10 of them known in existence, so it's like you've 100% made it at Super Saiyan 5. Like I don't think there's any, but like I said, you haven't made it in the scale of the universe, but you've made it within your race, and I guess that's a better way to look at it because it's like, like especially with what Sean said with Nexus there is like, yes, the scale of Super Saiyan 1 to Super Saiyan 5 for him is pretty much the first level of his race. Now his race might only have three levels, but like I said, just the gap that exists there is what it is. The second thing Sean mentioned was like I guess the scenario he posed. I listened to it twice, and I had it on the background both times, so I hope I heard it well enough to understand what he was saying, and it wasn't like just a rhetorical thing. But when he posed the scenario of like, you find yourself out there on a mission, and you might run into some people, and you find yourself approached by someone who is 10% more powerful than you. Like my first thought is this is a life or death fight that I there's a very good chance that if I don't put my all into everything, I will end up dead. Uh, that might be from losing a couple characters to life or death fights to just I said like and I think he was kind of beating around the bush like not wanting to covet generations, but like and here's my thing with that. I was thinking that and I was like I I understand how you guys kind of mess around with like all the best game and everything like that. Like I think part of real world is and it's something to handle delicately, obviously, and definitely not something you want to just easily toss out there. But like constructive criticism, like I will say this about Generations is from when I played in college to when I played today, I feel like it's a better game. Uh, it's not to say it wasn't fun back then. It wasn't to say it's like it's what got me into real world. It's got what got me hooked. But as time has passed, I feel like uh, the DM has certainly grown and improved quite a bit, and part of it is also the players have probably improved. Like I know, like I said, that's something I think about with a lot of the stories you guys tell. It's like I can't really think of a lot of stories that are anywhere near on the level that you guys have come up with in your games, and because people come with stories from generations, I think it reflects on me as a player. And I said I think part of it is being in that large group that we had going on in college. It's like you're probably going to find less driven story from the DM. Not to say that there wasn't a driven story, but like less so of it because it's a larger group dynamic, and probably more of your time gets spent uh, between the group than it does between the NPCs, like a one-on-one session does. And that's just kind of nature of the game itself. But yeah, like I said, I think part of it is probably my own lack of, you know, like I don't want to say experience. It was experience, but like my own lack of imagination and creativity when it came to being a player back then I probably cheated myself out of a better real world experience. That all being said, what I was getting at is like I don't mind if you want to like extrapolate something I said that ends up talking down a little bit on Generations, because like, you know, at the end of the day, it's still an amazing game. It's not a flawless game. I don't think any game is a flawless game. I think games have their strengths and their weaknesses. I think we're probably all aware of that, and it's like you don't want to point those things out because like you don't want to be negative. Like it's like, but like objectively, like there are some things like the DM rating things, like things got rated first, second, and third by different players on different things. So it's like they have different perceptions of the way things happen with games. It's not to say that it's bad. It's just some people do things better than others, and then like in some cases, like it might be a little like. And then what I was kind of tying that back to was my perception of Generations from the old days, where it's like if you met someone who sensed like they were 110% of your power, it's like you don't pull the first punch to see where they stand up. You try to kill them on the first punch because chances are they're probably going to kill you. Part of that might be from the excuse me. Sorry, guys. One of these days I'll get better. Part of that might be from the hard mode for the game that we selected, which was a mistake. Part of that might have been just like the DM seeking to create challenging things for the group. So it's like, as opposed to, it's like if you have a group of 4 or 5 people, it's like managing 4 or 5 NPCs in combat gets immensely complex, and it's like having one person who's stronger like take on the 4 or 5 of you is a lot easier for the DM to play out. And I'm not saying like the DM was being lazy. I'm just saying is as far as like a path of least resistance goes, it seems like it'd be a lot easier to do that more often than it would be to constantly have to juggle like 6 NPCs that you have to combat like 6 fights. And it's like you end up you don't go very far in the story because of how much time is going. Like I said, what I'm getting at here more is, and I'm not saying that the DM did this exclusively or anything, but like I feel like that's probably part of a reason why I at least perceive someone who is slightly above me as an immediate threat. And then part of it comes from like Drew's game, where it's like every NPC comes off the line designed to defeat your character, whether they can raise their right hand and nullify your powers, or if they are the most powerful being on a planet that randomly shows up to disrespect you or something like that. So it's like real world has kind of shaped me in that regard. It's like the person you encounter is going to be a capable fighter with probably like some sort of fighting background, especially if if it's in a scenario like Sean described where you're out on a mission or something like that, like someone you come across. That might not always be the case, but like if they're as powerful as you or a little bit more powerful, then chances are yes, they are an accomplished fighter, or like they are at least accomplished in regards to their skill set. So it's like if they're a blaster, like they've got like some crazy blast that'll follow you around and blow up in crazy ways, or stuff like that. Like, so yeah, whenever you said that, that was the first thing that came to my mind when it came to the generations of the past. Like if I met an NPC, I would assume if they seemed like they were tied to the story, that they would be it would be like a life or death fight, even if they were within like 10% of me. Now, I don't think that's always the case, but like that was just my personal experience, and it might be just like the things I remember, and I don't remember the encounters that weren't like that. Like Jimbo was a guy who he didn't register any kind of power level or anything like that, but he certainly made a lasting impression. But yeah, that's something like I said, I know I was guilty of, because I think I kind of copied it over from what I perceived in Generations. And again, like I said, we've addressed like my personal faults when it came to being a player back then. Like I might have perceived it and put it into my game as well when I was starting out, and that's something I've tried to consciously address to some degree. That like every NPC you meet, especially every NPC you meet in combat, isn't someone who's necessarily an equal match for you. Like not every fight is going to be challenging. I think like what's it called, like one of Keith's fights where he fought a Sylvari, it's like it was like 2 hits and it was over, and he had won because the gap was that wide. Now it's like, now the DM could have given her some more powers and stuff like that and made her stronger or whatever, but it's like that wasn't her purpose. But like that's something like I've definitely strived to do. Is I think it comes with more one-on-one style gaming as opposed to gaming in a group where you have it's a lot easier to play that out, like to get into the more depth of combat, as opposed to like six people all trying to get their turns, get their actions in, and then having like an NPC having to react to all those things at once. It's a lot easier if they're just a lot more powerful. Yeah. So that was a long ramble, and I don't know if that really answered anything or not, but that's just kind of a bit of perspective. Like the big takeaways from it was like definitely as a player, like I think that I was definitely a lot weaker than I was back then, or I was a lot weaker back then, a little bit more aware of the story and the surroundings going around me now. Whenever I play, part of that was from from role playing and other things like City of Heroes. Mickey and I did for like years, and then like some other games that we did. And it's like you kind of get a better appreciation for the storytelling aspect as opposed to the combat aspect of it. Like that was the thing we did in D&D campaigns, is like, we were the power gaming troop by and large, not entirely, but by and large. Yeah. What's it called? Like there was some story to it, and like I said, there was some good storytelling DMs and everything. But like I think, by and large, like our Jeffs, our Ties, I think even Scott was a pretty heavy power gamer. Like there wasn't a lot of like heavy role players. Like I think Sean was probably like the most into the role play aspect of it, and it wasn't until for me later, like I said, getting into it with like Mickey kind of drug me into it, like as far as the story aspect goes. And I was like, oh, it's actually pretty fun. And then I think when I came back to real world, like that's why I've sung so many praises of Generations and Cass's storyline. It's like, it's a fascinating story. It's a story with depth without having to rely on moving fast and hitting hard. And like I said, it's not that I doubt the DM could do that. It's just that I had put myself in a position not to experience it up until that point, and have a better appreciation for it now. But yeah, old me would have been scared to death, gripped his hammer tight, and prayed for mercy that I didn't die as I entered this fight when I found someone who's 10% more powerful than me. New me would probably still be pretty apprehensive about it. Let's not go say I've learned my lesson or anything like that. It's like, no, your character can still definitely die. You're not the hero of the universe of the story or anything like that. You can get it. So it's like, yeah, each fight needs to be taken seriously, especially when it's an unknown. Like if it's someone someone you have a repertoire with, like someone you have a past history of getting out alive with, then maybe you can take it a little more lightly. You can kind of probe the waters or test the waters a bit with your fighting abilities. But like if it's an unknown, like that's a potential death sentence. And if you value that character and don't want him or her to die, then you best approach it as if it's a fight for your life. All right, we'll cut out there.